other.
Yeah.
In case but I had dinner made. I had the cooler ready for all the popsicles because I've been bringing popsicles. So because no, we didn't.
There you go.
I need to because I prepared. And so I'm here. Do we know if there's been interviews?
What's that?
Do you know if there's been interviews?
Is Brad here? Or
So this person is here.
that's me. I guess you're the only panelist, right? So Brad's not it. Okay. Okay, it is June 24th, 2025, past the hour of 7 p.m. In Paul Tagliaferri Ferry. I am the chair of the Northborough Zoning Board of Appeals. Let's see. So pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency and signed into law on March 28, 2025. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation via the link listed in the agenda. Okay, so when I call your name, please announce that you are able to hear and you are present. Jack Carney?
Yes.
John Marr?
Yes.
Susie Cislico?
Yes.
And I am here as well. For town staff, we have Bob Federico.
Yeah.
Terry.
Carrie Underwood?
Yep. And Brenda.
Yes.
Okay. So first up on the agenda is you can probably leave Brad. Brad is still on, right? You guys want to do minutes quickly? Or the May 8th, 2025 and the May 27th meeting? Right. So we have consideration of ZBA minutes from the May 2025 meeting. Has everyone had a chance to read them over? Are there any changes or adjustments? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve. I'll second that.
All right, so Jack made a motion to approve, seconded by John. All those in favor? Aye. So next up is the meeting minutes from May 27, 2025. And has everyone had a chance to read them, review them? Are there any changes? Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
Motion to approve as drafted. I'll second that.
Okay, Jack made a motion to approve, seconded by John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So we can probably get started then. Currently we have present and 4 members of the zoning board of appeals. So first up on the agenda is a public hearing to consider petitions submitted by Angel Burgos for use and dimensional variances, a groundwater special permit and site plan approval to convert an existing single family home into a 2-family home located at 19 East Main Street, map 53, parcel 101 in the Business East Zone District. Okay. So Mr. Burgos, you're here to present to ask for relief for variances to special permit. You want to start just by introducing yourself and who's looking, and we can kind of just give an overview of what exactly it is you're looking for.
I'm looking for on 19 East Main Street to make it a 5-bedroom dwelling. And here with me is a realtor. And you have all the plans and whatever else was asked of me to put forward.
Okay.
So you can consider them. East and east. Single family.
Right.
Brad's here.
Yep.
Brad's
Okay.
up.
Oh, Brad is on. Brad, can you hear us? I'm sorry. Can you?
Yep. Okay.
Yep, Brad, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Great. All right, so I guess, right. So just to kind of recap. Or give an overview, right? So could you currently describe what is the current use of the property as it exists today?
It's empty,
Sorry,
it's empty.
it's empty, right? So I guess what was the last use then of the property?
I bought it like, I don't know when,
It's about 8 years ago.
Sorry,
I'm the neighbor.
okay,
About 8 years ago when the Hart sold it to the person he bought it.
okay. So the,
if you want, I can give you a little backstory.
sure,
As you said, about 8 years ago, I was right,
Ballpark.
ballpark 8 years ago. I was driving by and noticed construction activity going on. They had a permit to work on a deck. And when I stopped, they had the entire inside of the house completely gutted out and reframed as if they were going to turn it into a two-family. I told them they had to stop because they didn't have a permit for that kind of work. And they did. I gave them instructions to go to the ZBA for permission and variances to build a duplex out of this building. Previously, a long time ago, the building was two-family. It was converted to a single family. Bottom line is this board allowed to be reverted back to two-family. As variance of 1 year, nothing was ever exercised on that variance, and the variance expired. Building's been sitting for quite a while. Since then, Mr. Burrows is the new owner. The building remains gutted to the outside studs with interior framing most of the place. Mr. Burrows came to me, wanted to know what they could do to get it back to a duplex. I gave him the information. They're here. So the building right now, for the past 8 years, has been vacant. But it is technically classified as a single family as we speak. Because it's not previous variance. Because the previous variance was never exercised.
okay. So the decision in 2018, right? That was never acted upon, right? That was a
Correct.
that was a variance, or that was a special permit. Bylaws have changed since then. A special permit, I was on board. To change it from a single family home into a two-family home, where you had one unit was 2 bedrooms and one unit was 1 bedroom.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Just so that I can, here it states that on 2020, the house is considered a two-family. Okay, where's that information from?
In the packet I emailed yesterday, or you may not have received it until today.
Well, my
I have
question
the
is,
assessment.
okay, is that from the
yesterday.
assessors?
This is the assessors, and I have the
Okay.
bill card here that says it's a two-family.
Okay,
And in 2020, somebody switched it back from a single family with yellow to a two-family, so it's been.
you have to remember
It's
one
assessed
thing.
as a 2020, as 2020.
You need to remember one thing.
Okay.
The assessors, whatever they call it, has nothing to do with zoning.
Okay.
Okay? As a zoning enforcement officer, it's my job to determine what is a single family, two family, three family commercial. Okay? They only observe what they see, but they have no code enforcement. And they have no weight in terms of determining what is or is not a specific use. Okay, just want to make that clear.
So I guess the question I would have
Yeah.
is, like, has this house been vacant for 8 years?
Yeah.
Right, so it hasn't been used
No.
as really anything.
Right.
So if it was used as a two-family, you would lose any sort of two-family pre-existing occupancy.
Right.
So as it exists today,
Mhm.
it exists as a single family, which is why what the applicant is asking for requires essentially 4 variances,
Mhm.
special permit, site plan review,
Right.
et cetera. Okay. Do we have that sort of set, right? So what you're looking for, right, in terms of the variances, right, are essentially 2-dimensional variances, because there is not enough frontage, right, for a duplex. Roughly speaking, you have 93 feet, you need about 150. You also need a variance for the total lot area relief, roughly speaking, you have 17,000 feet. He needs about 20,000 square feet. You also need a use variance because duplexes are not allowed in the business east zoning.
Right.
So that is another use variance. You also need a groundwater variance, because it is in groundwater 3.
Yep.
And does not have the size lot required for groundwater 3 for a duplex. And then the final thing is the special permit for the 2-family in the groundwater 3 district, right, which also incorporates a site plan review.
So
Okay.
you have a variance for use. You have a variance for. Dimensional are needed from the minimum lot size, frontage requirements. 20 and 150 respectively. These variance of the minimum lot size within a groundwater protection overlay district.
So I guess. Well, I'll start my question with the septic system. Okay, because I think that there's been some. Different information that I've seen, right? So can you provide sort of. What is the current status of the septic system? Like, when was the last time it was, redone, cleaned, approved by the Board of Health, sort of like all that information, I guess. I guess we can start with, just whatever information you have on the septic system, its current state, what's it built for, are there any deed restrictions?
Built for a 5-bedroom house. And have the certificate of compliance. I have a copy of it, it's on my desk actually, but I have seen it, I've handed it to the health agent, the health agent has reviewed it, approved it. And they've closed out the 5-bedroom septic system. So it's in place.
Okay, and so when was approximately when was that septic system built? So I feel like last time we had in 2018, there was a question of whether it was new at the time or it was soon to be.
It should be on that sheet. 2017. Previously, it was a 3-bedroom cesspool.
So it was a 3-bedroom at the time. So in 2017, it was rebuilt.
Right.
And approved by the Board of Health for 5-bedroom.
Right. We have the engineering, we have plans, we have the approval, we have permit, and we have the certified as.
Okay.
So what is in the ground now is a Title V compliant 5-bedroom septic system.
Okay. And the approval was from 2017?
Yeah.
Well, technically, June 18th of 2024 it was signed off on, but it was installed in 17.
June of 2024?
June 18th, 2024, the signed by June 25th by Vito, the health department.
Vito Colonna is the engineer. Would it be okay for me to copy of that, so let me see it?
Sure.
I have a couple of them.
Just, Bob, you don't need to make a copy.
No?
You can just say, okay,
All right, okay.
we trust you.
That's fine.
Okay, so in terms of the next point, then the driveway, right? So with, and Bob, correct me if I'm wrong here, right? So with 2-family homes, it's almost regardless of the number of bedrooms, you need 4 spaces, right? Now, when you have a multifamily home, the bedrooms play a role there. Right, in the fact that if you have 1 bedroom, you need 1 space.
Mhm.
But if you have 2 or more bedrooms, you need 2 spaces plus 10% for visitors and stuff.
Right, that in multi-family.
That's for multifamily.
Yeah.
Right.
Duplex.
This is a duplex. So the baseline requirement for parking spaces is 4.
Right.
Okay. You mentioned something about there are plans to expand the current driveway.
Yes, that's the thing.
I don't think I saw that. I saw the interior designs, the renderings. But I did not see.
Basically, what they want to do is take 2 existing parking spaces and deepen them. So it makes 4.
So the parking plan is basically a 2x2.
Right. Nothing where I put that thing.
Make them tandem spots.
What's that?
2 tandem spots.
Yeah,
There.
2 in there, they're double group.
Because I think like, when I drive by the site, I think the one thing that. I would just, my own concern is the sidewalk there, right? So like not having. When you think about duplexes, you think about multiple bedrooms in a duplex, right? I picture more density on a lot that's not very big. And so the concern is cars, right? So I think like, is there any potential to sort of expanding the driveway so that there's other places that cars could park, right? On the property. I guess that's the question.
Seems to be big enough to do that.
Okay.
If you be there.
Do you have a plan of the extension, I guess? I
I'm looking,
don't have it. Yes, I have a plan. You guys, do you have questions? So, yeah, I guess we can probably get to the driveway in a few minutes.
Yeah.
But so then the other thing too is, just kind of driving by the property, like, are there any other like outside site improvements that you were planning to do with this property, right? Like, just from my visual of walking my dog past property, there's a front porch that doesn't have railings. The walkway is somewhat loose, I guess you could call it. The driveway is, not in good condition, but if you were planning to replace it, fine. There's a side entrance that doesn't have a walkway there. It's not very well lit. Obviously, it's been vacant for 8 years. I guess, like, is there a plan to sort of update the site so that it is sort of like an acceptable multifamily duplex that you would find elsewhere?
well, I was just notified about a week ago about that. But I
Okay.
haven't had time to like, look.
Okay.
With someone that give me ideas for.
Okay. Which that's fine. I think from my perspective, and I think, more about some comments in the letter. I think those types of site plan improvements are things that are usually pretty regular for what we're looking for, right? Like, when you're asking for 4 variances, stuff get permit to put a use that doesn't exist in this part of the neighborhood, right? I think the offset to that is obviously, board and others are looking for some sort of improvement to the property, right? Something that will allow for, the increase in the density of the property, right? I mean, you can understand sort of, we have bylaws in place that prevent sort of high density things going in, you can look for relief. What is that sort of offset there? But I guess then, if you can come up with things that could help there, I think it would be helpful. You talked about septic. And did you get a verification about the increase in post-development runoff volume?
Yes. I got an email from Jack Van Houten, the town engineer, saying the answer to the problem.
And that is with the new sort of proposed. Okay. I guess I'll stop there. I guess I'll open it to other board members. Does anyone have any specific questions? I'm not sure if we'll get to a decision on this tonight. Just as,
I guess I don't know what the hardship is.
okay.
Workshop shape is not a hardship per se, lots that have workshop. So what is the hardship that we're looking at here?
Okay. I think that's a question for you. I guess, do you want to just kind of go over, right? So like variances, there's 3 different prongs that you need, sort of like, how do you define sort of the hardship that is, specified in your thing to sort of allow for a variance?
You don't understand. You can ask, you don't
What do you
understand the
mean,
question.
the hardship?
So when, board variances in particular, there are sort of very high level legal take of it is there's sort of 3 different things that like you need to prove to the board, right, in order for a variance to be granted, right? And when you're filling out the application, you sort of ask the questions, right? What are the soil conditions, shape, topography of the structure, right? Distinguish it from other lots in the neighborhood, right? What is the hardship that is caused by the first factor, right? What is, will the relief granted constitute any substantial detriment to the public good? These are all sort of basic sort of questions that, as a board, we look at when trying to determine whether or not to grant variance. And because it's you have both the use and the dimensional, right? I think what Jack is talking about is the fact that, there are 4 variances that you're looking to get them from. 2 relate to the dimension, right? So one of them is the frontage. In order to have a duplex, you have to have 150 square feet. 150 feet, you have 93, right? What are the 3 things with regards to that frontage that make it, cause hardship? In regards to the shape, right? The shape is only, or the size of the lot is only 17,000 square feet, right? You need 20,000 square feet. Coming up with an answer for that. So, you don't have an answer specifically on that today. Like I said, I don't think we're necessarily gonna have a decision for you today. So that's something we'll take back and sort of reassess and come back next month. If that's okay.
I did answer the questions on the project information. Which for the applicant. There's for the question about the hardship. Yes, I wrote on there. Just
Yeah, I mean, I guess Jack, you asked me.
So my question is, if you have a legally existing structure currently, you're just looking to turn it into a 2-family to create more income for yourself. But you're not changing anything on the lot per se, you're leaving the house where it is, where it exists. So you're asking us to allow this change, but I don't know why I'm allowing the change. So there has to be a reason, just, the fact that you want to increase your income is not a hardship.
May I?
Sure.
Hopefully this will be helpful. Angel purchased this property in August of 2024. The property at that time was represented as a two-family. We checked with the town, they said it's a two-family. That the previous owner had got it rezoned in 2018, but never acted upon it, okay? And that all Angel needed to do was just, resubmit the application, get the permits and everything. Here we are, June of 2025, and we're now getting action on this. So the Angel's dilemma here is, I thought it was buying he knew what he was buying. He was buying a shell that a previous owner that, didn't do a great job with it. We know the backstory there. Here he is. He's not a career investor. He's a family man. I've worked with Angel for many years. He's buying this. It's not gonna make him rich. He's gonna pour his heart and soul into it. Rent it out to two families. There's a need for housing in Northborough. I'm a Northborough resident for 25 years. Every day that it's vacant, he's losing money. His daughter that just finished her first year of college, Stonehill, that's not cheap. This is personal for me, not as a real estate agent. What he bought is basically something that you're saying, what's your hardship? The hardship is that he bought something that,
Just broke it in and
Was
checked with the
told-
building department. I'm sorry, I'm a realtor too.
yeah,
You should have done your job, I'm sorry. Okay? And I hate
that's
to be mean,
offensive. Watch it.
I hate to be mean, but
No, that was
is he
offensive.
planning on moving into this property?
No.
Okay, so he's looking at an investment. And you're asking us, this board, to give 4-dimensional variances, plus a special permit. And I don't see the hardship.
That's a question.
Sure.
Just clarification purposes, when did you reach out to the town to verify it was a?
Before I bought it, I left messages for somebody to call me back, nobody did. And then we went through the attorney to make sure there was a two-family, 5-bedroom. And that was what I bought, that's what I thought I bought.
The attorney informed you that?
Yep, it was a 5-bedroom, 2-family.
Did title work and everything. Everything except for what we're hearing tonight, that what the field card says. And the assessment history, again, in 2020, it was switched from a single family to a 2-family. And now you're saying it's not. So what can we do to just make this right? So yes, Angel has hardships here. What can he do? Because right now he has a money pit.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Do you have the documentation already?
The other hardship, excuse me, was that the file was lost for several months. We found out, about a week ago? His file was lost.
Do you have any, so you have documentation trail where it talks about being a two-family structure?
I don't have it with me, but we can get it, yeah.
From the attorney?
So I think just to kind of step back a second here, if the hardship that you listed in the application was that it's a pork chop. No, I don't want to speak for Jack, but to say it's a pork chop lot, right? Maybe doesn't, for some people, raise the bar of being a hardship. Now, if what you're saying is, well, it's actually this, that's fine. Just, present, I guess, some sort of documentation we can look at that says, it was, you have email trails or whatever that say, we thought it was X, Y, and Z. And that's your side of the hardship, right? That's kind of what it is we're looking for, right? Or at least that I would like to see, right? So, yeah, I mean, whatever it is your hardship is, right? If it's, you were told certain things, then that's the sort of backup I think would be helpful for the board. So John, you said you were asking about specifically emails from.
Well, that's my point. It's basically like, can we just.
So if there's like communication you had, or, you know, I think, sorry, Judy, right? You had said like you had spoken to, like, if there are things that you filed or whatever it is that you think makes the case that you're trying to present, I think for us would be helpful, right? Emails, communication, you know, that sort of thing, right? If you know, the other property owner was saying it was X, it's really Y, then you know, those are certain things that I think could be helpful to us as a board, and then us as a board will make that determination whether we think it rises to the level of being an actual hardship, right? Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions with regards to this? I feel like there's some open questions here, so I mean, I think we are going to continue this case. Brad, I feel like I should probably call on you. Is there anything specific that you have for the applicant at this particular time?
The only thing I would say is like what Jack said, the hardship, and the major thing that's concerning me is a 5-bedroom with a square driveway. And I'd like to see what the anticipated changes are to that driveway. You know, personally, I used to live or have a single driveway, and what we used to do is just put one car in the street, and that's what we want to avoid. And so I lived on a little side road, but this is on a main road, and we want to avoid that. So I want to see if with a 5-bedroom, what the change is to the parking situation.
And so I will just echo Brad's point about the parking. You know, I just think like whatever sort of design you have for what the parking could be, and you know, if you just want to think about something that's a little bit more than just 2x2, because again, just my thought is like, again, 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, that just seems like the potential for a lot more cars than 4. I know that what our bylaws say. But you know, those are standards from our bylaws. This is also a public hearing. So if there's anyone in the public that would like to speak, or if there's anyone online on Zoom, if you could just please raise your hand. And then please state your name and your address so that we can record that. And you, yeah.
John Bernassi, 7 Virginia Lane, which is right next to his property here.
Okay.
I thought, I could have heard wrong. I thought, Angel, you said you were gonna do a 1-bedroom and a 2-bedroom? Two apartments, one is a 1-bedroom, and one was a 2-bedroom? Did I hear wrong?
You heard them, yeah.
Okay.
So I will say that the application that we heard in 2018 was for 1 bedroom, 1 2-bedroom.
Okay,
And
that's
that-
where I
yeah.
mistaken.
Yep. And so that, yeah. So I think the current plan as it exists today is for 2-family with 3 bedrooms and a 2-family. Okay. I don't see anyone else with their hands raised at the moment. I guess, are there any other questions or comments from the applicant at this time? I mean, I think that we will probably just continue the case to our next meeting and just give you some time to sort of provide some feedback to some of the comments and questions. But yeah.
Just to like save some time, like for the applicant, also when looking at the pictures of the deck and like you had said, the front deck, and the back deck. Do they need railings and stuff like this? Like, is there anything that we?
Front deck has pictured, does not need a front railing, in the back decks do not either. The only time you need a railing is when the floor surface is more than 30 inches over grade,
Okay,
okay? So 30 inches is kind of a big step down, but it's not required to code.
all right, making sure. And then listening like about what my fellow members were talking about and knowing real estate, having worked in real estate, maybe a title search. Like maybe that would be helpful. You
There was
have that.
Yeah, great point. There was a title search done by
Yeah.
when Angel bought it, and everything was clear.
Yeah, so like if you, that might be helpful.
Another one?
For the document, yeah, the one, no, the one that you did, like when you were closing, yeah, like for your closing, yeah. Showing that it was a five
Oh,
bedroom.
provided you did.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. If that shows that it was a 5 bedroom in the search.
Okay, so the parking was the biggest.
Okay.
But I just have two quick questions. So I want to confirm there's two access.
Um. Okay. Any other questions at this time? So I think that there are some open items out there. So John, just from a zoning perspective.
Yep.
But basically like that first row of houses, is all business.
Yep.
Right, and then like the house behind it, and then there's a neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right there as well. Alright, so I think at this time, if anyone wants any other questions, I don't see other hands raised. I'll entertain a motion to continue this hearing. For 19 East Main Street, at 53 parcel 101, to our July 22nd meeting at 7 p.m.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Brad?
I'll second, I didn't know you could just say something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They might say.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll do a roll call vote. It's
Pardon me, who can Angel get this information to?
you can send all this information to Lori Connors,
Okay,
so the planning director, and it's probably best to also CC
You can
Bob.
CC me, and Lori is usually really good at sending me the information. Yes.
Yep.
I think because I'm here alone without her, we'll probably have to get it put my hands together. So.
So Brad made a motion to continue the meeting to our July 22nd meeting at 7 p.m. It was seconded by Susie. We'll do a roll call vote. Jack,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Susie,
Yes.
Brad,
Yes.
and I'm an I as well. Okay. Thank you guys for coming in. Appreciate it.
yeah.
Okay. Discussion of TCAM surplus land. So I don't know if anyone has been following it's been a topic of conversation recently on the planning board. And was most recently presented at the select board meeting last night by Amy Gretzky. Does anyone want to just give like a very high level update? Sure. So I guess everyone has this one. Right, so this is so DCAM, which is the Division of Capital Asset Management and Maintenance. Safe. In the state of Massachusetts, owns a piece of land at what is considered Lyman Street, so it sort of abuts Delaware, right? And so what they are looking to do is they are looking for input from boards in Northborough, specifically the planning board and the zoning board of appeals on what our essentially are. So within your You should have also received a letter, a draft letter, I should say. In the email that sort of basically lays out sort of what the town's thoughts are gonna be. What we would like to see on this parcel plan. So I think simply the state's gonna auction it up to a developer or someone to buy it. And then there's still some debate in whether or not they're gonna have free reign or if they're abide by our bylaws on what to do with the property. We're supposed to provide the state with some comments. Okay, so the planning board has been working for the last, say, a couple of weeks. Reaching out to local legislators, trying to understand exactly what it is the role that we play. My thought is that, the deadline, I believe, is July 18th to provide comments back to the state, 17th or 18th, somewhere around there. 18th. And there's a draft letter being written by the planning board in conjunction with Lori, the planning director as well, which sort of goes through some of like what it is we would like to see, right? Maximum density of 4 dwelling units per acre, minimum, distance between buildings of 20 feet. It's all right there in sort of draft letter. And so, as a zoning board of appeals, it needs to provide comments. We can either sort of draft our own letter, or we can sort of just, if you guys are okay, I can work with Amy and the planning board to sort of come up and represent the zoning board of appeals on any letter they send, so that when we send it to the state, it will say that essentially from the planning board and ZBA. And typically, so long as I've been on the ZBA, I've been against ZBA sort of providing any sort of inputs as we're sort of the quasi judicial part of the work. But in this case, what is different is that the state is actually asking us for our. I think rather than, happy to hear any comments that anyone has today. But I think my initial thought was, if you guys get time, if you have a specific comments or whatever with regards to this draft letter, the planning board has several meetings set up from between now and whenever the draft letters due to sort of discuss it. If you guys, are okay with it, you can send comments to Lori. She can sort of wrangle some of the comments and then, essentially deputize myself as chair of the ZBA to represent our interests and work with the planning board to sort of provide help and context and sort of be the representative on the one. Does anyone have any?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Brett.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I think a letter that unites multiple boards would be more impactful and people would listen to it at the state level if we work with the planning board. Based on that economic development meeting we had back in December at the senior center, it seems as though that we are in quite a bit of alignment with the planning board as far as the direction of the town, as far as housing. I know just based on results from the master plan and results from that meeting that, housing is a hot topic. And so if we align with the planning board and just come as a solidified front, I think that would be a little more impactful than just have multiple boards do that. And like we've talked about in the past, we're an appointed board, we're not an elected board. So just putting one letter together, and the fact that housing is not at the state level, housing is an issue. That's why we're dealing with this right now. But at the town level, housing is not a top priority for the residents. So if the planning board agrees with it, maybe we can put more restrictions on the density and keep it at the MBTA zoning law like that. That's the max, and then anything below that. But I'll let the majority decide on that. But that's where I'm thinking.
And I think essentially like the basis or the main point of the letter that the planning board is writing. It's like kind of at a high level, like, here's what we want to see, right?
Yeah.
In addition, like, we would like to have some sort of like site plan review-ish type of overview of whoever buys the property, so that it's not just whatever gets put in, right? So, yeah, I don't know if anyone has any specific comments, doesn't need to be today. If you have like specific things with all, I mean, it was a lot of information. I did send it out today. I apologize for that. But if there are things that, as you're going through it, that come up that you think should be included, if you want to send an email to Lori, and then she can pass it on to me, and then if we can make sure that at least the ZBA's interest or whatever you think is a benefit could be represented. That sound good? Okay.
So you want us to email you comments? Or Lori, or both of you?
I would email Lori comments. And then, I can make sure that those comments, I'll ask her, and I think this planning board is planning to meet for the next 2 weeks to discuss this.
Do they do a response by June 27th?
So I think the plan is that we, the town of Northborough boards, will have a letter to the state by the 18th.
By the 18th of July.
Yeah, so which means if we want to discuss it in public, we need to have a meeting before.
Yeah, sure.
Try to do it tonight, so I don't forget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all the comments, okay?
Did you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
I just want to throw something out, in a letter it says the required minimum density is 4 housing units per acre. Okay, so that's in the letter, that's requirements. The other thing, and I'm sure Lori is way better knowledgeable than I am about this. The affordable housing, our 10% affordable housing ratio. I think my opinion is that we're putting really close to that 10%, which would mean unfriendly 40Bs. My question is, how many of these units can be set up as to be capital A affordable to help get our threshold up over 10%? Because in my experience here over the past 8 years, on average, we build 9 houses a year. That's 72 houses. We haven't built 1 affordable unit. Okay, so whatever ratio we had 8 years ago, it's gotten very, very close to that 10%. So I would suggest you look at some of these units be designated as affordable housing. I think the planning board is working on something maybe 15%. When we talk about affordable housing with the MBTA zoning, that sort of thing, or higher density housing, which was recently passed at the town meeting. But I would say, if you have questions about that, I'm not posing to Lori, because it's something that we all need to be aware of, and Lori's the one who make those numbers work.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to kind of read from the letter that Ian had written, like, if they are requesting in the letter that affordable housing bylaws requiring 50% affordable units if over 10 units be owned, right? And so it's 5.5 acre-ish property, minimum is 4 units per acre. You're looking at 20 units there, so it's like we need to get, make sure that, to Bob's point, like, we want to stay over 10%. You're forcing us to add 20 units. We'd like, town at least like have some be affordable so that we're not impacting and degrading sort of the percentages there, right? Those are the type of comments that I think we're looking to add. I think the planning board obviously is well down the road there. But if there is input, that you guys have specifically, it's sort of somewhat out of our hands, but at least like the state is looking for input, and the planning board has, apparently been talked with the state about.
Yep.
So.
No, that's a great point by Bob. I mean, anything should include some 40B, just so we stay above that 10% threshold for sure.
Yeah, it's one of the things I've kind of argued is that, if you make the minimum requirement 10% affordable, you're only treading water, you're not getting ahead of the curve. Where, the town is going to have more organic housing, how do the ADUs come into play with this whole situation? It's it's wise to keep ahead of the curve, that way it prevents the unfriendly 40Bs. The other thing I was gonna mention is that even though these units were allowed by right, the state is taking it out of the book, so to speak. There are reasonable regulations the town can impose on these things, and there are 5 criteria: building height, mass, weight, things like that. And it's listed in this that came out. If you've got questions or things that you want, again, it gives you the opportunity to respond. If you have ideas about what would be reasonable regulation, now's the time to think of it. Something more cheap.
Cool, thank you, Bob. Are there any other comments, questions with regards to the DCAM stuff? Brad, are you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. We already approved the minutes, so reorganization, I have not heard or seen anything from the select board in terms of the final open position, so I want to just kick that can down the road. One more meeting. I will email Stephanie Bacon and Julianne to make sure that they are actively looking at that. Our next meeting is July 22nd. I believe this case that we heard tonight will be the only one at that meeting. Since there have been no other applications filed. It would be the other application. That's all I have. Yes.
Sunday is our first concert of the season, at Ellsworth Park, 5 to 7, Disco Lemonade. We have, Northborough House Pizza, Ashburger, and Yeoman's Ice Cream, so hope to see everyone there. Won't be as hot. It is, I think it's June 30th. June 29th. The heat is. June 29th, 5 to 7.
All right. I don't know anything else. John, do you have anything else? Good.
I'm good. Sorry.
Anything else? Anything else? Brad, are you good?
I am good. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
I made a motion to adjourn. Roll call vote. Jack. Aye. John. Aye. Susie.
Aye.
Brad.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. All right. Have a good night, everyone. Good night.